Now, overthrowing dictators and staging a revolution, well, it's no laughing matter, but one Serbian activist thinks that humour could hold the key to mobilising people and changing the world. Back in Belgrade in 1998, Srdja Popovic formed the Optor movement, a group which inspired huge peaceful protests that led ultimately to the fall of Slobodan Milošević. And since then, he's worked with pro-democracy activists in more than 50 countries around the world, including India, Iran, Egypt and Ukraine. Well, Srdja is here with me, is also the author of a new book, Blueprint for Revolution: How to Use Rice Pudding, Lego Men and Other Non-Violent Techniques to Galvanise Communities and Overthrow Dictators. Welcome to the programme.
Pleasure
A fascinating book. Now, I read that when you were 18, all you were interested in was staying up late, drinking and girls. So when was the when was the moment that the penny dropped that actually you could get involved in other things like revolution?
Well, I mean, it's like when I was young, there was this idea that being an activist, meaning being an old lady interested in dogs' rights, well, nothing sexy about it, but because we were under a very bad regime of Milošević and because it was beating the very culture, it was when the rock bands actually stand upon and start fighting against Milošević. And it was the rock concert, the moment where majority of my generation understood that we need to fight back, was that all the cool people was on one side and all the bad people were on the other side, which is where I understood not only that activism can be cool, but also this is something everybody can do. The idea of the Blueprint of Revolution is telling the story.
And it's interesting because not only cool, but you make the point that you can also make it fun, and it is much more, in terms of effectiveness, it is much more effective, it is funner. How do you do that? I mentioned Lego Men and rice puddings. I mean, just...
Well, these are some of the ideas. The humor is a very powerful tool in this type of struggle. There are like 3 types of effects it produces, and one of them we see behind us, it's a toy protest in Russia. The people came to the idea that because they can't protest, the toys can. And then what your opponent would do, if he reacts and bans the protest like Russian government did, they will look stupid. I mean, can you imagine banning the protest of toys? If they don't, everybody will start doing it and they will look weak. So there are like reasons why humor is so effective. First of all, it breaks fear. There is nothing more powerful than humor to break the fear in this society. Second, it adds the cool factor. I mean, think about the people around you. Who is the most attractive person in your environment? The funny one. And then it makes your opponent, the people in power, whether democratically elected or dictators, they think too highly about themselves, and then they make the stupid mistakes. I was quite interested that you talked also about having a low bar to try to draw people in, and you cite what was done in Chile. Tell me what they did and why that, again, was effective. There is always this answer why something can't work, because, you know, the regime is too oppressive, but what you are really looking into are not the big demonstrations and big tactics of concentration, and the book tells a appealing story of great low-risk tactics people were doing when hitting pots and pans, driving half speed, walking half speed. And when you lower the bar, the participation grows. So we must stop thinking about the nonviolent protest as only the demonstrations. There are so many little victories people achieve, and this is the story the book tells.
Milošević was overthrown in 2000, but how did you, in terms of the advice you give to pro-democracy, I read a few of the countries, but there are many more. In countries like Zimbabwe and Iran, where freedom of expression is very, very difficult, what advice do you give then?
Have a long-term vision of tomorrow. I think the reason why Serbia really changed in this 15 years, and this is a very different country, and it's democracy now, it's a factor of stability in Balkans, is not only that we were effective and funny, but we have the big deal. We were thinking about the 10, 15-year-old framework. So looking at this, the first thing is think big, start small. The second thing is pick the battles you can win. Don't think about the march of millions if you're only a few people. Do something tangible, do something effective, and most overall, have fun. Have this idea that this is the powerful mobilizer.
You have a couple of chapters. One is It's Unity Stupid, and the other is The Demons of Violence. Now, in some countries, you think of Egypt, you think of Ukraine. In a sense, we've had both, haven't we?
Well, we did, but it's always like the question 2.0 of this book is how you follow up the successful revolution with a successful transition. And you need unity all the way along. It's not only the unity during the process, but unity in the transition. And we witnessed this in Serbia after the downfall of Milošević. And one of the real tasks for the society is maintain building the institutions. You need independent institutions. You need to fight corruptions. You need to fight the very idea that the former dictator's shoes are so comfortable for you. And this is how you get to democracy.
Yes, you say that, in a sense, you've got to make your brand bigger than their brand. I mean, you talk about another chapter, finishing what you've started. Do you think that is what has gone wrong with, say, the Arab Spring, where you've seen in countries like Libya or Egypt? In a sense, those regimes were overthrown, but we now are in a position where we've almost gone backwards.
There are several reasons why revolution failed. One of them, they're losing unity. Second of them are demons of violence. One of the goals of this book is stop thinking that bombing solves problem. There are scientific studies, Syrian scientific studies, which show that the violent protest is twice less effective than the non-violent protest. Yeah. So stop thinking about, bombing places like Afghanistan and Iraq will solve things. Try look at how you can support indigenous movement who are doing things.
I love the notion you put forward in terms of non-violence. Why would you, if you took on David Beckham, go onto the soccer field? You've got to challenge him by taking him on in chess, because the military dictatorships have the armies.
Well, we try to explain this to the people, where you're trying to challenge a person like Assad with violence. This is trying to, play football with Beckham, or, going to boxing ring with Mike Tyson. Obviously, it's not the boxing ring where you challenge Mike Tyson. The guy will eat your ears, then he will eat you. So please try playing chess, which is the non-violent conflict. So pick the battles you can win.
And also always dream big. Srdja, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you.